Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're celebrating Pride Month with a lesbian vampire classic. And if you stick around till the end of the video, we will see what one particular author has in common with both Oscar Wilde and Gertrude Stein. So let's get into it. Carmilla was written by Sheridan Le Fanu and first published in 1872. It tells the story of a young woman named Lavra who is plagued by nightmares and sleepwalking episodes. Her mother, believing that these episodes are due to romantic thoughts in her daughter's mind, hires a physician to come to their home and cure Lavra of this dangerous affliction. The doctor, John Paul Macready, arrives accompanied by his friend, a mysterious bohemian artist named Carmilla. While there are several things that are off about Carmilla, Laura's mother is more concerned with how much time the two men are spending alone together in Laura's room than with whatever dark secrets Carmilla might be hiding. One night, Lavra wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and rushes to find Carmilla in the hallway. When she asks him why he is there and what he is doing, Carmilla responds that he has been called to sit by her bedside because she had called out for him in her sleep. He says that he did not want to wake her, but he heard her calling for him, so he came to her, saying that if he had not come when he did, he believed that she would have died from fright. Over the course of the following weeks, Carmilla continues to spend an inappropriate amount of time in bed with Lavra, claiming that he is helping her to overcome her illness. Laura's mother becomes furious with Carmilla for all of the time he spends in bed with her daughter and demands that he stop sleeping in Laura's room. Carmilla agrees to move out, but shortly after he does so, Lavra begins to waste away, becoming weaker and weaker until one day she dies. Her mother, grief-stricken and guilt-ridden, begs Carmilla to return and help her daughter, but he refuses, saying that he is powerless to do anything for her. In a fit of rage, Laura's mother strikes Carmilla across the face, but even as she does so, she notices something strange. His skin does not bleed when she hits him. Instead, blood seems to ooze out of his pores, like ink bleeding over the page. Horrified at what she is seeing, she faints. When she comes to, Carmilla is gone. But she soon learns that he has returned to town, and that he has taken another young female apprentice. Realizing that he may hold the key to saving her daughter, Laura's mother goes to find him and discovers that her daughter was right. Carmilla is a vampire. She finds Laura's body missing from her coffin and sees Carmilla drinking the blood from her mouth. Though he tries to resist at first, eventually Carmilla gives in to his desire for blood and kills Laura's mother as well. And so the story ends, leaving us with yet another tragic tale of lost love, death, and despair. The character of Carmilla has become a popular addition to the pantheon of famous vampires. Often portrayed as a seductive creature of the night, she is usually depicted as having a sort of noble or aristocratic bearing, which is certainly true of the portrayal of her in the 2019 film adaptation of the novella. However, Carmilla's identity as a lesbian vampire has also become a source of fascination for many queer readers. Even though there is no explicit indication of Carmilla's sexuality in the original text, some readers have interpreted her relationship with Lavra as being romantic and sexual in nature. In fact, the novella has been read as a kind of allegory for lesbian desire, with Carmilla representing the dangers of giving in to such desires in a society that criminalized homosexuality. The phrase "she done him wrong" was even scrunched together to make the title of a 1971 exploitation film about a lesbian vampire. But despite this reading of the text, Carmilla herself has never been explicitly identified as a lesbian in any official adaptation. That is, until now. To put it plainly, Sheridan Le Fanu did not write Carmilla with a lesbian vampire in mind. In fact, even the suggestion that the relationship between Lavra and Carmilla might be sexual in nature would have been shocking to the author. Not only was the novella published over 50 years before the first recorded use of the term lesbian, but its publication in 1872 predates the full-scale prosecution of homosexuals in England. by almost 20 years. Victorian England was certainly no stranger to coded or even overt expressions of homosexuality. The first novel to feature a lesbian relationship didn't even try to hide it. Written by the English novelist and poet Radcliffe Hall, the novel was titled The Well of Loneliness, and it was published in 1928. Because of its subject matter, the novel was heavily censored and even banned in several places, including Australia and the United States. And Hall herself was vilified in the press, who condemned her as a moral degenerate. Even in light of this kind of public reaction, it's clear that there were members of the LGBT community who saw themselves reflected in the work of writers like Hall and Le Fanu. This is especially true of those who are a part of the so-called aesthetes movement, a group of intellectuals and artists who gathered in the late 19th century under the leadership of Oscar Wilde, a proponent of the philosophy of art for art's sake. The aesthetes believed that beauty and art should be pursued for their own sake, and that they could and should be separated from any moral concerns. Wilde himself is perhaps the most famous of the aesthetes, and his play, The Importance of Being, Earnest, is a prime example of the movement's beliefs. It is here where we begin to see a connection between Sheridan Le Fanu and both Oscar Wilde and Gertrude Stein. You see, one of the most prominent members of the aesthetes circle was a writer named Walter Potter. Along with Wilde and a handful of others, Potter helped to found the group, and he is considered to be one of the most important proponents of the philosophy of art for art's sake. Potter was also a close personal friend of Wilde, even dedicating his first novel, Marius the Epicurean, to the playwright. But Potter's influence can also be seen outside of the realm of aesthetics. He was also a major influence on the development of early modernism in literature, most notably in the work of T.S. Eliot and Virginia Woolf. In fact, Woolf credits Potter with influencing her decision to abandon realism in favor of interior monologue as the primary method of narration in her novels. But Potter's influence can also be seen in the work of Gertrude Stein. Like Potter, Stein rejected traditional narrative techniques, instead focusing on the stream of consciousness as a way of portraying a character's thoughts. This experimental style of writing is on full display in her novel, The Making of Americans, a semi-autobiographical work which follows the lives of a family of Americans living in France. The novel is notable for its highly experimental style, which makes use of multiple narrators and a non-linear plot. Many critics have noted the similarities between Stein's work and that of her contemporary Virginia Woolf, and the two writers were certainly aware of each other's work. In fact, Woolf wrote a blurb for the first edition of Stein's novel. But while there are similarities between their styles, there are also some very important differences. Unlike Woolf, Stein was never afraid to state her politics. Stein was a supporter of communism in the Russian Revolution, and she was a vocal critic of American imperialism. This political engagement is evident in much of her writing, including The Making of Americans. The novel is set against the backdrop of the First World War, and the American characters are portrayed as being complicit in the violence and destruction of the war. But Stein's politics were not the only thing that set her apart from her contemporaries. Stein was also a lesbian, and she was unafraid to live her life openly as a member of the LGBT community. In fact, she was one of the first public figures to come out as gay, doing so in 1934, and she was a major figure in the early gay rights movement. This aspect of Stein's life is less well known, but it's no less important than her contributions to literature. Stein's bravery in living her life openly as a lesbian paved the way for generations of gay men and women to do the same. And with that, our celebration of Pride Month has come to an end. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.